guys, and welcome to today. And like I said at the end of the last one, it's the same day as when I made the last one. Pussy's still trying to sleep, and I'm now about there on this one. And what I'm going to be doing today is going to be quite a long one, because I was asked a couple of questions, but really well. And I've been waiting for a message like this for a long time. So I've got myself a replacement one ready. But anyway, I got this message sent through, and just so as you know I'm not lying, there is a message on there. Okay, I don't know how well that's going to come out, because I know it flickers because of frame rates and stuff, but whatever. You've seen that I'm looking at a message on here. Now it began, "Hi Bill, I have been subscribed a while on another channel, but I am too embarrassed to use that name of the other channel to ask some questions." So hopefully that's giving it away to whoever asked me the question, because if you're too embarrassed, I don't really want to give away your name. Unless, of course, it came out when I did that. Sorry. But anyway. It's quite a well-structured message. I have to admit that. It goes into some detail and gives me some links. And the person in question, he's young, just got their license, and I'm trying to skim read this because I'm trying to remember what I wanted to mention. Thanks for reading any of this rant. I am just interested in your opinions, as these issues could affect a lot of my career ahead. My dad is currently in the process of trying to buy me a grab truck, a DAF CF75, to help complement the digging side of his business. But with these new developments, this job could be a lot harder in the future. It's already hard enough to get insurance for the vehicles. I am 19, never insured in the business before, but driven for it since I was still in primary school. Obviously off-road, diggers and stuff like that before people start getting emotional. The insurance quote which I got for this truck was just ridiculous. With two named drivers, myself and my dad, the insurance was, drumroll please, £24,000. Ooh! Ooh! That stings! Oh, what a kick in the nuts that one is. I then proceeded to stick it on any licensed driver with no age restriction, and it was 11k. So I've read the start of it, I've read the end of it, so now hopefully you know exactly who you are, and I am now answering your questions. But anyway, he went into quite a bit of detail, and I've basically written down the basic questions. First of all, now I've already covered these kind of things before, but it gives me an excuse to do it again. First of all, question number one, when do I think autonomous driving will actually take over? As in, done. Bye-bye humans. This question is, well, it's a very hard one to answer, because it depends how dumb a country is. Pretty much. I mean, how technologically led is the country? And that will answer when autonomous vehicles will take over. For example, take America. Now, in somewhere like California, autonomous vehicles, lots of people have the autopilot function on cost and use them. You go down to southern states, for example, Texas, not too many people use them. California is a majorly technologically driven state. It's also quite left-leaning politically. Southern states tend to be right-leaning politically and not as electronic technologically driven. Now, for anybody who just got scared by that, that was a fly that flew in front of the lens. Oh dear God, I'm being attacked by the beasts. But like I said, I do live in the Essex countryside. I said that in the previous one. But anyway, you've got two different states within the same country. California will happily go autonomous. Texas I can see being a bit of an issue. Oklahoma I can see being an issue. Kentucky I can see being an issue. You know, you're getting the idea. Most of the red states will be an issue. Most of the blue states won't be. Because the blue states are more electronic technology. The issue is, to get autonomous vehicles going, you need a pretty comprehensive AI program. You have to allow that vehicle to be able to learn, to understand everything. One of the major issues, and if you've got certain types of cars, they have sensors in them, and when you go through speed restriction sign, it actually comes up on the dashboard what the speed limit is. Excuse me one moment, because there's a lot of flies. This is going to be, like I said, the issue is that you've got a high-end car and you go through a speed limit, and it flashes up supposedly a little speed limit restriction sign on your dash, so you know what the speed limit is, because it's read it. And it can quite happily confuse 20 with 70. You know, and things like that. 50 and a 30, I think, is another one that usually gets confused. Well, if the software you have at the moment that you're developing can't handle something that simple, you're going to encounter a huge amount of other issues with it. One of the primary issues I've always been concerned about with this, because don't get me wrong, I can see a benefit to autonomous vehicles for the elderly and the disabled, so as they can maintain a level of independence. And for around city centres, you know, the little pods that can take you from the train station to where you work and so on and so forth. I can see benefits to it, I can. But you're going to lose motorbikers. Horse riders won't be allowed on the road anymore. Push bikes, you know, your cycling clubs and that, kiss goodbye to them. For the simple fact that your autonomous vehicle will not be able to differentiate between a cyclist and a relatively large animal. And in that situation, if the car has to make a decision between an oncoming vehicle and, you know, its occupants versus, say, an animal, it's going to take the cyclist down every time. And then, of course, you could say, oh yeah, but it will do that to pedestrians. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to program it to protect pedestrians and the animals, so it will kill all its occupants. You've got a huge number of issues with these things, along with hacking. Getting hacked is... Controlling a car remotely is already possible. If you end up with a completely autonomous vehicle with no driver interaction, no ability to take over that car, somebody could easily hack you and drive you all over the place. I mean, quite recently there was the NHS hack, caused a huge amount of carnage to the NHS. Just something as simple as that. It postponed operations, caused all kinds of bleating mess. Millions of pounds of issues, I believe. Well, imagine if a hack like that, a worm similar to that, gets into the autonomous vehicle system, because all autonomous vehicles are going to have to communicate. So by a degree of separation, every vehicle will ultimately be linked up and down the country. Now, okay, your vehicle might only need to be in communication with, say, 5 vehicles in front. But go 5 vehicles in front of that, and the vehicle your car is in communication with is in communication with vehicles 5 in front of that, and so on, and so on, and so on. Do you see where I'm coming from? You get a worm into that, you could have not just millions of pounds worth of issues, but you could have potentially millions of serious injuries or death. So, one thing with autonomous vehicles, and I've said it before, obviously, I will say it again. And it's pretty simple. As with everything. If you don't buy it, it doesn't make money, guess what happens to the business? It goes bankrupt. You know, you buy everything on Amazon and then sit there scratching your head going, well, why is the high street dying? Because you buy everything on Amazon. The stores aren't just open for you, they cost money. Money they have to raise with you going into them, spending money. It's the same with everything. One thing that's always been, I found really bizarre, and I'm going to go off topic a little bit here, but sod it, I might as well, is the love affair people have with Elon Musk. Now I'm certain that the guy is probably quite a decent bloke. You know, and I'm not personally attacking him in any way, shape or form. He's quite a decent bloke, more than likely. But the thing is, in the last recession, 2007-2008, everybody hated bankers. Hedge fund managers, bankers, merchant bankers, the works. How did Elon Musk make his money? He was a founder of PayPal. Elon Musk is essentially a merchant banker. Everybody hates bankers, but they love him. Oh, well, he's got SpaceX. Yeah, America has NASA. Get your government to fund them more. Your government, America's government, has way more access to money than Elon Musk does, if they really need it. He is an absolute genius, but not for the reasons you think. He's an absolute genius of PR. Seriously, I mean, you're talking about SpaceX and trying to get customers to fly around the globe, and maybe the first passenger planes or passenger ships, I suppose you could call them, to the moon and back and stuff like that. And there was a program not so long ago called Mars. And it was all about, supposedly the first expedition trying to get humans to colonise Mars and so on and so forth. Elon Musk was behind that. He even featured in it. There was interviews with him to make it more realistic, to get even more backing behind him. He is a genius when it comes to selling himself and PR. But there are some dangerous sides to some of the things he says. One of which is he understands the autonomous vehicles will put a lot of people out of work. Therefore, we should look to have a universal wage. A universal wage. Who thinks the universal wage will make you all millionaires? Universal wage will be deemed to be what is survivable. That's it. It will basically, a universal wage is basically benefits. At the moment in the UK, that's capped at what, 23,500? A universal wage. Everybody earns the same, unless you are somebody like Elon Musk. Unless you are somebody who develops the company, owns the company, is an integral part in the country. Everybody else can have a universal wage. It's dangerous. But one thing I do want to point out now is you've got AI, okay? Let's say you've got AI, you've got autonomous vehicles. To all the people who make money investing, to the bankers themselves, an artificial intelligence will be able to calculate things far quicker and way more accurate than you. Most of the stuff you do is guesswork. Right? The other thing is there are a number of trades that occur that are greed driven. Fraudulent. And if you get caught, you go to jail. AI isn't greedy. There will be no greed-driven trades. It will see trends and it will act on them. So it's not just drivers that are going to be put out of business. It's anything that involves technology, for example, trading, maybe even quantity surveying for service industries. You know, anything that involves or a computer could potentially do. Bye-bye. All you workers, bye-bye. It's not just going to be the drivers that are affected. This is going to have ramifications for everyone. And then you're going to have a universal wage. Then you're going to have the conversation about, should the monetary system exist anymore? Well, if nobody's employed, but there's certain jobs that machines can't do. So we're going to have people to do those. Right? But we've all got a universal wage, or we don't need money. These people will do it voluntarily. Or everybody, you'll have a week every other month or something like that where you have to go and do that job. Whether you want to do it or not, whether you're scared of heights and it's a height-based job, or, whether you're scared of arachnids and it's a cleaning-based job, or whatever. This is going to lead to such a catastrophic issue. It's not just about drivers losing their jobs. In order for artificial, like I said, the question is, when do I think autonomous vehicles will take over? When we have full AI. And when we have full AI, the vast majority of people who are watching me, your job will be taken over. It won't just be drivers. I mean, think of how you could sit there and go, yeah, what about shelf stacking? A number of warehouses that I deliver to, all the shelves within the warehouses are stacked by machines. All you need is a smaller version of that, you've got shelf stacking. But then again, everybody will be shopping online. So do you need the stores? No. You might need somebody to go in the home delivery vehicle to take the goods to the customer, because a robot won't be able to get over absolutely everything, whatever, but you never know. But then what are you going to pay these guys? Because everyone's on a universal wage. And the universal wage isn't going to be something like 10 grand a week. It'll probably be something like 300 quid a week. It will make the wealthy a heck of a lot wealthier. Do remember that the people you are in love with, the investors in all this wonderful technology, a lot of them made their money through being investment bankers or merchant bankers. Elon Musk, PayPal, a merchant bank. Isn't it? That's all it is. PayPal. You pay money to PayPal, it holds it as a merchant on behalf of the company. When the company fulfills that order, it releases the funds to said company. It is a merchant bank account. That is it. It's a holding account. They are all greed driven. We know this. Everyone knows this. The technology will make them very wealthy. It will make people with a bit of savvy in investing exceptionally wealthy. Everybody else, universal wage, 300 quid a week. But I want to go to Spain on holiday. Sorry, can't afford to. But I want the money. Tough. So when do I think autonomous vehicles will take over? Completely. Given the effects it will have on the population, on the revenue generation of a nation, the taxation system. I mean, if you're not earning money, if the government is essentially paying you a universal wage, chances are it won't. There'll be certain jobs that it will take, but you will have to be there. Because there might be certain jobs it can't do, like for example, drop and swap a trailer. It will need you to do all the gubbins. So chances are, it will never actually fully take over. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't buy it, the company goes bust. Just saying. Anyway, I'll put an edit in here because I've been dragging this out a bit and go on to something else. Right then, the next part. Question number 2. My God, he's finally got there. Yeah, there's 3 of these and I'm only on question 2. Do I think diesel emissions, the diesel death, is over-exaggerated? No. Why? My father worked for Ford's Technical Research and Engineering Department for 30-something years. He worked all over the place, from the actual assembly kind of line within Dunton to the testing cells and so on and so forth. One of the things was, if there was a leak in the exhaust flume when there was a diesel engine in test, he would be taken to hospital and put on oxygen. Diesels are exceptionally deadly. CO2 might be low, but remember, when all the car manufacturers were pushing diesels, at the same time governments were pushing reductions in CO2. Nothing else. Nothing about carbon monoxide, NOx gases, or anything else. Sulfur emissions, whatever. Carbon dioxide. Diesels do not produce much carbon dioxide, but they produce a heck of a lot of carcinogens. At the moment, we live in a world where if you're in an economically developed country, 1 in 3 people are guaranteed to get cancer. How many diesels are on the road? I mean, you go back to before diesels were really being pushed. If it was 1 in 10 people getting cancer, it was insane. As diesel sales have gone up, so too have the rates of cancer. Do you really think they're unrelated? I mean, really? Cities with all these diesel vehicles, the taxis, the buses, obviously the trucks delivering stuff, and people owning the diesel cars and everything like that in city centres. How many people born in cities have breathing difficulties? The coal used to do it. Diesels do it. Petrols do it. Anything that creates emissions causes these issues. The thing is, petrols produce more carbon dioxide and not much else of the other. They produce carbon monoxide and other bits and bobs, but nowhere near as bad. Petrols are pretty much as clean as they can be. Diesels, it was only because they don't produce too much CO2. Everything else, who cares? You know, it's like anybody who's old enough will remember sitting behind the old 405 Peugeot estate pumping out black smoke going up a hill. Anybody who's about my age or older, you remember that. And you remember sitting there, and if you were in the car behind it, the diesel would be filling up, whether it was a coach or a 405 or whatever. The diesel fumes would be filling up the cabin and you'd start feeling a bit woozy. Then along came filtration systems for it. A diesel particulate filter doesn't make it cleaner, it just makes it finer so you don't see the smoke. And the particulates are so microscopic now that as they come in, as you breathe them in, they go straight through everything. You know, when they were thick particulates, you actually had some form of filtration to it. Your nasal hairs. Now they're so fine, they get into you, they go through the tissue. Diesels should have always remained commercial. They should never have been in Joe Bloggs' cars. But there we go. I mean, do I think the diesel stuff is overrated? From what I grew up with, from what I heard, from all the bits and bobs in the research and development side of engines, no. No. Diesel emissions are deadly. They really are. I can sit in the cab of a truck all day. And when I get home, just being in the truck, and when I get home, I can have a shower and everything that comes off of me is black. From where I have this fine film over me. You know, all the emissions that have seeped into me. I mean, most truck drivers will at some point have breathing issues, respiratory issues, and probably cancer. I pretty much put money on it now. Because of the amount of other diesels that are on the road. And we live in that environment. CO2 is very easily controlled by plant life. For example, if we hadn't have destroyed the rainforests we have destroyed, would we have the global warming we currently have due to CO2? I'd love scientists to answer that. I'd really like to know. I'm just saying. But anyway, I put an edit in here. I kept that one relatively brief because I could go on. I really could, but I'm not going to. And then I'll go on to question 3. Oh dear. Right, well. Question 3. Oh, lovely jubbly. Feasibility of electric cars. Now, I have really... With this question, I've really kind of just grouped everything that was asked into this. I mean, the death of diesels, it was pretty much just, is it overrated, and what do I think, you know, when do I think autonomous vehicles, that's more of a personal kind of question. The feasibility of the electric vehicles, right, what was a segment on that? Just so that I don't get this wrong. Hang well up tidy, lovely jubbly. What do you think the feasibility of all electric vehicles are? As in, every vehicle just being electric, everything's electric. Final question I'm going to ask is, what do you think the feasibility of electric vehicles are? The reason I ask is the government again think this is the only solution to combating climate change, but electric cars are actually more pollutant than fossil fuel cars. I'm going to stop you there. The production of them is, at the moment. The reality is, if you can get an electric car to give you, say, I think it's about 250,000 miles, you're in the green. CO2, a lot of people don't realise CO2 is actually released by tyre wear. Your tyres, rubber is not black, okay? Rubber is a white kind of substance, a bit like the old rubbers you used to use at school. The puss-pussy's back. Yeah, literally, they're about the same white as parts of him. What gives tyres its compound is a byproduct of the crude oil refining process. It's known as carbon black, I believe. This gives you the various compounds, and it also turns tyres black. So you have carbon in them. And as you use your tyre, you get carbon dioxide, or carbon emissions, I should say. And carbon dioxide is obviously one of them. So you do have to bear that in mind. The other thing is, whatever vehicles you have are going to have bearings and moving parts. They're going to need lubrication. So you've got to think about that as well. Electric cars tend to use lithium polymer batteries, again, at the moment. There's various technology going on, technological advancements where they're going away from lithium. There's been a few breakthroughs in other fields. I think one person actually found a way of maintaining an electrical charge in essentially a water-based solution. Although I can't really remember where I read that. I know I read it somewhere and it was quite recent. I'm sure somebody watching me will know. The range is the next issue. I've always said battery-powered cars, the range is an issue. And of course, we all own mobile phones. Oops. We all own mobile phones. And we all know what happens to batteries relatively quickly. The phone doesn't last as long as it did the first day you bought it. However, please understand something else. Electric driven vehicles are pretty much the only way forward. Bill, what did you say? You've always hated them. No. I haven't. I've always hated battery powered cars. There is a difference. How do you think hydrogen fuel cell works? The hydrogen fuel cell generates what? Electricity to drive what? Electric motors. I'm a big fan of the potential developments in hydrogen fuel cell. You fill them up pretty much the same way with a fluid into a tank. It takes pretty much the same amount of time, and at the moment, with the efficiency of electric engines over electric generating ability of hydrogen fuel cell, you have ranges of about 400 miles. You're already pretty much the average kind of powerful car. Remember, electric cars are going to be hell of a powerful, because they're literally, the accelerator is quite literally an on-off switch. It is quite literally bye-bye. So I'm actually a fan of them. Battery power, it's a waste, because you have to have X amount of batteries to last time, but batteries are heavy. So the more batteries you put in, the heavier the car, the more power it needs. Do you see where I'm going? With the hydrogen fuel cell, you could have a few storage batteries. So the hydrogen fuel cell and the storage batteries weigh no more than an average, say, 3-litre engine. And you've got a 400 to maybe 500 mile range. And the best thing about these is the way in which they'd more than likely be made, given that you can do a conversion on a classic car to battery power. I mean, Wheeler Dealers did it. Ed China, one of my favourite all-time mechanics. Because he's an engineer. I'm sorry, he's an engineer. He's got a degree in engineering. He did it with the Maserati bi-turbo, and he really liked it. And to be fair, yes, it is pretty cool, but not batteries as a storage device. Because the question goes on to cover something that is, I'm so glad a 19-year-old is asking this and bloody covering it. It goes on to say, goes on to say the infrastructure, the electronic infrastructure of the UK is almost at capacity now. Everybody has plug-in electric cars, plus their TVs and their skyboxes and their PlayStations and their fridge, their washing machine, their cookers, their hobs, the heating, everything. You know, every day when you get home, you will plug that car in. If you forget, you will be buggered because you will run out of juice. There might be charging points at work, so pretty much all cars are going to be continually on charge, along with your fridges running, and your washing machines running, and your bits and bobs, and everything else. I mean, fish tanks as well use electricity. Obviously, if you're heating the water. Everything. Your lighting. How do you think I charged a camera? We're already at a critical stage come Christmas with our power grid. America is as well. There was one part of this that America has been working something out, or something in... Hold on a minute, let me just open this back up again. Because again, I don't want to get this wrong. I am answering yourself directly. Yeah, he actually says the UK's power infrastructure is not really good enough to currently support having vast amounts of electric vehicles parked close to each other. In general, it doesn't. The grid it's kind of an in general thing, but I know where he's coming from with it, because he's like, if you had 6 vehicles side by side charging simultaneously, you could create. Where's it gone? I've completely lost it. Aha. With the government encouraging electric vehicles usage, as more and more people buy them, there is going to be more and more. Well, he refers to it as brownouts. As far as I'm aware, it's blackouts, but then again, I'm older. Is blackouts not PC correct anymore? Electric vehicles, masses without look at the consequences, brownout issue. Right, okay. The state of California, with all its green energy, still produces about 100 grams of CO2 per mile for electric vehicles burning coal, producing the electric for the vehicle. Whilst in the Midwest, where coal is burned far more, it's more like around 300 grams per mile. Now, he's actually got that from links, because there are some links in this message. TheEnergyAdvocate.co.uk and ScientificAmerican.com are the links. Just so as you're aware, he's not just making this up off the top of his head, he's used these links to get this. These are the kind of questions I absolutely love, because somebody's actually done some research into it, and being that this person is 19 years of age, well done. Absolutely brilliant, well done, I'm loving it. I also don't think these figures take into account for mining and transportation, you've put transporting, of the coal. But to put it into perspective, about £2 of coal for every kilowatt hour of electricity. So it's going to be a fairly high transport cost. It's actually a really well structured question. I'm lovely. And I'm sorry I'm dragging it on so much. But this is a major issue. Sod Brexit, sod Trump in America. I mean, Trump's a president. Okay, if the be-all and end-all of your life is, oh my God, Trump is president, he's a president. He's limited by the American Constitution. Sod it. You know, every time he does something unconstitutional, it gets blocked. The travel ban, what happened to that? Big U-turn. Obamacare, he was just going to get rid of it. What happened to that? A U-turn until he's putting other legislation through. Unconstitutional means blocked. He can't be a dictator. So just give up with it. 4 years' time, vote him out. Everyone's happy. Brexit, it's going to happen. We can always rejoin the EU later on. It's not a massive issue. This kind of stuff it affects everyone. Brexit affects the UK and Europe minorly. Trump affects America for maybe, 18 months is theoretically as long as a president really affects America because of the campaigning and the trails and That's not an issue. This is. And it's absolutely genius, because it's looking at the actual core problem. Electricity is the way forward. I don't doubt that. But not battery powered. Because when these batteries are used up, you've got to get rid of them. You've got to dispose of them. And what kind of pollution is that going to create? Okay, fine. So CO2 is low. Diesel, CO2 is low, but it kills us. Batteries, CO2 is almost non-existent, unless of course you factor in coal-burning power stations. It's a big thing. Hydrogen fuel cell. It is pretty much carbon neutral, except for the factories that would produce it, which are still using carbon forms of energy. But hydrogen fuel cell in itself will power the factories. It's looking at all of this. I love that question so much, which is why I've taken so much of your time, so much time to answer this particular person. And it's fantastic. Are electric cars feasible? Well, yes. Electric motors, electric driven cars. I think even Ed China, Aaron Kaufman, anybody you want to name, they will all say exactly the same thing. This is going to be the way forward. It can only be the way forward. But how do you create the electricity? Because if you want to go carbon neutral, it has to be carbon neutral every step of the way. Now, do you want to put solar panels instead of metalwork on your car so that the entire car is just a big solar panel? Well, what happens when it's raining? What happens if you do a lot of night work? Just saying. You know, Sinclair C5, that worked well, didn't it? Do you want batteries? Well, I can understand it with charging ports in towns, in cities, you know, for little pods and things like that, as long as the electricity generated is not from coal power stations. But then again, you've got, well, wind farms, solar panels, nuclear. Yeah, nuclear worked out well, just ask Fukushima. You've got the issue with hydrogen fuel cell, and this is the big elephant in the room, is getting the electrolyte fuel for it. It's at the moment it's hell of an expensive process. It really is. We don't really have the technology to get at it easily, so it is expensive. But then again, how expensive was drilling for crude oil in Victorian times? I'm just saying. But anyway, there we go. I think I've answered the questions as well as I'm going to at the moment. I hope you enjoyed what I've said. Maybe you've found some flaws with what I've said. Maybe you've thought, actually that's a good point. It's up to you. It's all whatever. If there was a lot of buzzing at the beginning of this because of that ginormous alien fly that attacked me, there are many apologies, but this seems to have done the trick. But anyway, thanks for watching. To the person that asked me, I'll refer to you as P.O. I shall call you that because of your name. We can lose faith in the younger generation. I mean, I am 32, so I'm not exactly young, but I'm not exactly old either. I'm kind of in that horrible mid-section. I am that section of society that spawns the next generation. But we can lose faith in the younger generation. And I'm sure the older guys will happily agree with me on this. I mean, I referenced the things with Trump earlier when I was trying to make out how important this is, with Antifa and all that crap that's going on. But every so often your faith is restored that Antifa are a very small segment of society. That, you know, the communist ideals are a small segment of society. That fascism itself is a small segment of society. And a dictatorship, a fascist dictatorship or a communist dictatorship, you know, if you think Trump is a dictator, fascist or otherwise, you don't really know how dictatorships work, do you? Because a dictator doesn't care whether it's constitutional. A dictator says something and that's what happens. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. That's what happens. And you start to see all the people going, oh no, not in my name, and crying, continually crying and screaming, and you think, are they really that just lost. And then you get, well, obviously this person has said that they're 19 and they have become a truck driver. So I'm going to hazard a guess, not a massive academic. Like myself, I'm not a massive academic. Not many of us are. And they've asked a very well worded, very well structured series of questions that are actually ignoring Corbyn going massively left, Trump maybe being too far right, that are ignoring all of these things that are just wait until the next round of general elections, wait until the next round of voting, wait until... You see what I mean? What are the pressing issues? Is there any point to a 19-year-old being a driver? Will autonomous take over? That leads on to the artificial intelligence issues. You know, what other jobs are going to be affected? How many people are going to be affected? Universal wage, how would it work? Well, it's going to be as much as you need to survive, and that's basically it. Then, of course, diesel issues, because a lot of people own diesels. Commercial vehicles are diesels. It's a pressing issue. And then, of course, electric cars. What are the feasibility? Well, electric motors are the way forward. Battery powered? No. For now, okay, it's a stopgap. It's developing the technology for the electric motors. It's helping to develop the future of personal transportation vehicles. But battery power, it's a stopgap solution, I think. I think most of us can agree with that. But electric motors are the way forward. These are some of the real issues that affect us. And it's just so nice to be asked it by somebody so young. So again, thank you very much. Hope you've liked and enjoyed this, and well, like, subscribe, share about, do whatever you do. Call me an idiot if you want, I'm very used to it. I'll catch you in the next one, whenever that may be. See you later, guys.